Alrighty everyone, now that we have a little more meaningful sample size in the UFL, I've gone ahead and put together a spreadsheet with some matchup data and some position specific stats to hopefully help you target players and put together a DraftKings lineup for today's slate, or today and tomorrow's slate, week 5. Starting with the matchups tab down here, we have the 4 games on the slate. This first set of columns is coming from Vegas, from DraftKings Sportsbook specifically, and then I've used that to find the implied point totals for all 8 teams on the slate. Green obviously better. And then these set of columns here are their matchup stats. So for example, San Antonio is playing Arlington. Arlington allows 203.5 pass yards per game. They allow almost 110 rush yards per game, and they give up 25 points per game. So that means it's a pretty good spot for San Antonio's offense. Go back down to the bottom tabs here. We have 3 position-specific groups. So we can start with quarterbacks. And we have, obviously, their name, their DraftKings salary. This stuff comes from the Vegas tab. And then we have their stats based on the season so far. The last 2 columns here come from that matchups tab. This is the defense they're playing against, so McCarron and Etling. They're playing the 2 worst pass defense teams, at least in yards per game. And they also have 2 of the best 3 matchups in terms of points allowed per game. So it's a good spot for McCarron and Etling. You'll notice Etling and Troy Williams are yellow because those are typical backups that are projected to start today. So they don't have nearly the amount of stats the rest of the quarterbacks do as they're making their first start. So these attempts per game and yards per game numbers are based on the limited snaps they've had. They've only played, a handful of snaps on the season, so you can kind of disregard that. But you can see from Etling, even though he's only played in like 3 different games, he's still averaging 10 rushing yards a game, which is really impressive when you consider how little he's actually playing in these games. So he brings rushing upside as well as a super cheap salary, in addition to one of the best, if not the best, matchups on the slate for a quarterback. So Etling at 7,800 is someone I would strongly consider today. Moving over to running backs, we have a similar thing here. We have Vegas information. We have their rush attempts per game, their targets per game, and then I've combined those to make an opportunities per game. So this is targets plus rush attempts, so how often they're getting a chance to touch the ball, and then that's color-coded. So green is better, obviously. I've also included rushing touchdowns and then their matchups, rushing yards allowed per game. So again, San Antonio is in the best matchup for rushing, followed by St. Louis. You'll notice there are some high-priced guys that are out, and that's going to provide opportunity for some backups at good prices. Lovett, for example, should get the bulk of the carries for San Antonio, again in the best matchup on the slate at a really reasonable salary. So he's someone that I've highlighted in green just to say he's a target of mine. Similar situation for Sailors with Durant out, and the second best matchup of the slate, tied for the highest implied total, a decent price for him. So he's someone that I have interest in. And then going down to Birmingham, Person's already been getting a lot of work, but Marable's out, so Person should get even more work than normal. And then Roundtree, who has yet to play, but he should shift into the backup running back role. And Marable and Person were already kind of splitting work, so if Person moves up into the lead back role and Roundtree moves up in Person's role, where he's getting, 7, 8 rushing attempts a game, he's viable at min salary there at 4K, which is why I have him in green. And then finally shifting over to wide receivers, same basic idea. We have the targets per game for each receiver, the yards per game, their touchdowns, and then their matchup data. How many passing yards does their opposition allow? I have it sorted by targets right now, but you can also sort by their implied total or their yards per game or who's in the best matchup. Whatever you find most valuable. That's pretty much it. Hope you can get some value out of this, and good luck on the Week 5 UFL slate.